Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats. Today is December 5th, and we are just past Thanksgiving, and we're all got an eyeball towards looking towards the holiday break. Um, whatever reason you choose to celebrate. For me, it's Christmas, but we take 2 weeks off at the end of the year here at Goshen Consulting. If you've been around and you've been following us on watching these videos, or you are new to us or whatever, if you've seen us before, you've seen usually a Goshen logo in the bottom left-hand corner. If you'll see something's different, we've got an IC Topic Chat logo. We also have stickers, and if you want one, email me your address, or I think we've got a form. We'll put it in for those people who are live right now. We'll put it in the chat at the end. Um, and we will send you some stickers so that you can put them on your water bottles or on the back of your phone or on the back of your laptop case or on your refrigerator or wherever. You're not going to send you one. I bought 1,000 of them, so I'm probably going to send you a couple so you can put them all over the place. Anyway, we'll facilitate that, and there'll be a little Christmas present for you at the end of the year. Today's session is on key performance indicator, KPIs. It is a core topic, which means we repeat it every year. We repeat it, the KPIs, every December. I like KPIs in December because I'm often thinking about what just happened over this last year and how do I look at that in reference to what's happened in the years previous. And so that's why we do these KPIs in December. But we do a core topic every month. Next month will be why start an independent consulting practice. It's a new year kind of thing. A lot of people want to start their consulting practice at the beginning of the year. I know I went 100% independent in January, so that's why we do that. And so we have a different topic that's a core topic each month, including like fees and office spaces and insurance and things like that. How to market, I think that's March. And so, but this is our December version. All right, so I'm going to pop into the next slide, and I'm just going to pop right into it. So the next slide, if I can get it to go, is what you're probably the main key performance indicator is profitability. If you're not making money, then you can't stay in business. And what's a profit? The calculation's pretty simple. How much money did you bring in? How much does it cost to run your business? Did you have any money left over? A profit would be a plus and a loss is a negative. So, I was telling the people who are live here to put things into the chats. There's nothing to put there, but that's the main one. And in many ways, I think this was pretty much my only key performance indicator for the first 8 to 10 years of the practice. I wasn't thinking much about it. But anyway, thanks, Lauren. She's working on doing her personal KPI journal, so this will be great. Okay, next one, profitability. So think about this. How much does a specific project cost for you to coordinate? What is the project revenue? So if you invoice your clients over the period of a year, $20,000, but it costs you $22,000 to conduct that work. Now, how would this is where you're going to put stuff in the chat. How would we calculate those costs to conduct the work? So it's the revenue minus that cost. For me, those costs are primarily in time because I'm tracking my time. And I've established a billing rate, which is a conversation we have, I think, usually in April on how to set your billing rates. Other costs might include travel, of course, or any specific costs specific to that client. Now, there's an overhead rate. We're going to talk about that as one of our key performance indicators. But if you're working with ABC University and ABC University gave you $20,000 and it cost you $22,000, your project profitability is negative. You generally want to try and make that even or positive, of course. Profit First. That's right. Great book by Michael Michalowicz. All right, let's see what we got here. Hit rate. This is a very common KPI. That's the number of successful proposals that you have received. So you put out 20 proposals total and 15 come back, you have a 75% hit rate. I don't use this that much. We think about it a little bit, but we don't calculate it and think hard about the hit rate because every proposal seems to be very different. but I think it's an interesting way to think about it. Does anybody else use hit rate? Feel free to put something in the chat about it. But I think we talk about it. I know um, my partner and I think about this a lot, but we don't really calculate it. The hit rate is an interesting piece that I know others have talked about, but I don't use. Utilization rate. Yeah, exactly. Great. It's a common for grant writers. Thanks for that. The utilization rate or the consultant productivity. So this is actually when you're thinking about since I have other consultants that I work with who are teammates of mine, um, we look at the number of hours that they work on what we call it client facing work or billable hours. We don't use that phrase, but it's common for this in this world. How much of their total hours they work during the year is on client facing work. So if they have approximately 2,080 hours at a full-time job over a period of a year, you're going to have certain hours that are specific to, they're going to be on holiday. There's some that they're going to be on PTO. There'll be some times that they're working on administrative or business development, but the rest of those hours are primarily client facing work. And what's that percentage? And we spend time thinking about this, and we're still trying to figure out what's that real number, because what do you pull out? Do you pull out PTO and do you pull out holidays? Probably. And you just look at the rest of the hours. But a calculation for billable hour or utilization rate or productivity, when you pull out those hours that are kind of a wash, oftentimes you're thinking you want to be at or above 60%, because the other 40% you need to do so that you can spend time in coordination meetings and things like that. It's also good for yourself. If you're tracking your time, you should be thinking about how much of your time is on billable time, client-facing time, work that's specific to a client. Forecast rate. So this is thinking about a project. If you forecast that a project to be 100 hours over the next year, and you're tracking your time, again, you can see I keep saying tracking your time. Hypothetically, you figured out you should be tracking your time so that you have a better understanding for how your operation's running. But your forecast rate versus your actual hours. So hypothetically, your actual hours, this percentage should be less than 1, hypothetically, because you want to have actual hours at or below your forecast hours. If it's over 1, then you're over 100% of what you're expecting to do. You might just say, well, I had 100 hours and I've only worked 80. And this is for those of us who use like a value-based billing approach. I will say we're going to budget 100 hours to work on this, and I'm going to charge them for 100 hours on a quarterly basis. So if it was $100 an hour, which is not our billing rate, that's just for calculations, $10,000 for the year, I'm going to charge them $2,500 every 3 months, every quarter. But it's incumbent on me to make sure we work at 100 hours or less. Sometimes we're going to be over. It happens. It definitely happens to all of us. We want to try and make sure we don't blow it out of proportion, and we don't want to be too low either, because then we're really not giving maybe enough value to our client. But you want it to be at or near 1, and below 1 would be better. Toggle and timely. Thanks. Their overhead rate. So these are the costs that are not specifically associated with a client. Those are your costs for your perhaps accounting, your costs for an office. Those are your costs for any software that you use for all of your clients, like survey software. We've used Alchemer in the past. We're currently using the name's escaping me, but we have lots of different software that we use. We have my time actually, for the most part, is overhead for all of our staff, because we've got 19 of us, 17 employees and 2 subcontractors. But the overhead rate are those costs that are not specific to a project. So you want to be thinking about what that overhead rate is on a regular basis. Total organizational costs, facilities and administrative costs. Those are the non-specific. Let's see, I wrote it here. Non-billable time, office space, software. So non-billable time, that's an interesting one too. You may or may not want to put that into your F&A rate, but perhaps you should. Something to think about. Definitely dig in deeper on that one if you want to think about it. All right, here's one I haven't used in the past, and I think it's super important, and we're actually definitely thinking about this nowadays because we want to grow the size of our project. I want to grow the size of my project so much that I'm scheduling to talk about it as one of the IC topic chats, I think in March. Um, but what is your median project value? Um, Overwhelmingly, when we first started, everything was around $5,000 to $10,000 projects, and I say we, I mean me, because it was just me for the first 9 years of the practice. And I would have so my median project value or median project budget was probably around 10,000. So you're going to have some that are bigger. You can see here on the left, on the right hand side, you've got bigger ones, and you're going to have some that are smaller. And it's okay to have smaller ones, but you want to think about what that median is and look at it over time. So I looked at it yesterday, and we're happily around 14,000 for our median project value. We have a series of smaller projects that are not necessarily a bad thing because we do them very quickly and they are profitable for us. But I would like to be I would like to have most of our projects up multiple of that. I'd like to see $50,000 projects for what we're doing nowadays. So this is definitely a KPI that I'm thinking a lot about these days. All right. So I have a handful of other Goshen KPIs that I don't have listed in the same way. I'm just going to list them out for you and I'll talk about each one of them. We're thinking a lot about past due invoices. Hopefully you are too. Um, the past due invoices, how many and what value of those past due invoices are over 30 days? So we put out an invoice on perhaps October 1st, and we have well, technically only one client who hasn't paid, who we gave an invoice on October 1st. We put out a lot. So that's actually really good for us. And what's that value? Um, how much savings do I have relative to the annual budget? So I know I'm paying attention to that, and it seems like a minor thing, but if something goes wrong, if people don't pay on time, do I have somewhere I can go? If you don't have savings, um, you may also want to think about getting a line of credit. I've gotten rid of my line of credit. I'm very happy to say that we do have effectively our internal line of credit in the way of savings. So what is your percent of savings to your annual budget? In an ideal world, you'd have 3 months. Not everybody has that. That would be an ideal world. What's your year-to-date consulting net income versus last year's year-to-date consulting net income? What this means is how much if you're using QuickBooks or accounting software, it will calculate this for you. And so I'm looking at this on effectively a weekly basis, at least a monthly basis, trying to understand if we're at or above where we've been in the past. And it's interesting for me to kind of give me a kind of a temperature on how well the firm is coordinating. Are we doing as well as we have? And we are, and we're doing better, which is a really exciting thing. So I'm very happy to say this is one little indicator for me that the firm is continuing to grow and remain profitable because we have more net income. Oh, next. Oh, how many employees do we have and what's the FTE? You may not need to think about this if you're a one-person operation, but I end up communicating that in documents to people all the time. We say, well, we've got 17 employees. Technically, our FTE, if you've got part-time people, they're not going to be a 1, they'll be a 0.5. So you add up the FTE, that's full-time equivalency. So we are 13.5 FTE, 17 people, but if you count our subcontractors, we're at 19. And one subcontractor in particular is as much of an employee as anybody else. We just have her on a different kind of contract. Additional Goshen KPIs. This was supposed to pop up one at a time. Proposals. We look at our proposals that are developing, that are submitted, and pending. So developing are things we're actively working on right now, helping a client with. How many do we have of those? How many have been submitted and we're just basically waiting for? You know, you submit a proposal and you wait 3, 6, 9 months, over a year. We usually find out that they've been funded 2 weeks after we forgot we wrote them. That's my joke. And then pending is one that is a classification of that we've gotten feedback. It's happening. This is going to happen. They want to work with us. Maybe the National Science Foundation, we do a lot of work with them, has communicated back to our clients that they want to work with um, the client, with the university, and we're just waiting for everything to kind of get finalized there and their contracts to be submitted and for them to start the project, and then we'll start ours. So that's pending. We try not to do too much work when it's pending, but invariably we do if they need us to get an IRB done at the 11th hour when they have to submit something back to them in 3 days turnaround or whatever. We are doing client satisfaction surveys, and we want to know how many of our clients where we've quote unquote met expectations, and my partner's done a lot of work with that. In fact, she just presented some of those ideas with our team on Tuesday. And then we also do a staff survey of all of our coworkers, and we have 3 overall areas. I looked at the data yesterday, but it's too much to put on one slide. So just know that there's 3 broad areas that we're looking at, and there's several questions in each of those areas that we're thinking about, and we like to look at it over time. So we started it last year in 2023, and we just looked at it again in 2024. Additional KPIs that we're not using, but we're definitely thinking about. Consultant billable capacity hours. So what that means is if you have, what's your capacity to do more work? I get that question a lot. Do you have the quote unquote bandwidth to do work with us? And it's nice to be able to know that. I feel like we haven't completely nailed down how to calculate capacity in a quantitative way. It's still kind of qualitative with us because each client's a little bit different. So I can look at how many hours people have worked, and I can kind of guesstimate on what I think their capacity is, but it's still more an art than a science. Revenue per consultant. I can literally say how much revenue has this, because we do tracking of our data of our revenue by project area. And so you can do this for just yourself. How much revenue did you bring in? Now, if you have multiple people in your firm, you're going to be looking at this by each individual based upon the projects that they're working on. You can subdivide it based upon which projects they're coding if you want to. There's a lot of ways you can calculate this, but it's looking at the revenue per consultant. I am looking at revenue per team right now, and that helps me understand somewhat the capacity piece. Back to the last one, like and I know how much we pay our folks, and so I start to do some calculations, and I think if you get to this X number within your team, you may be ready for a new person. Or at least I think I can afford it at that point. And that's usually another way to encourage people to think about asking for more with their projects, because they know if we take on another $5,000 a year project, it's going to take a lot of those before they can get some more support, because $5,000 doesn't go very far towards a salary. Churn rate. Churn rate, you can think about this lots of different ways. One of the most common way is thinking about to what degree are you starting with new clients and then they leave you. And so you might be thinking about this over a period of years, not singular years. If you're a grant writer, your churn rate might be, I worked with this person once and they never asked me to come back again. Now, I'm thinking about this broadly and more qualitatively over, well, we did this project with XYZ University and they got a new grant and they didn't invite us to be a part of it. That's a pretty good indicator that there's something, maybe you're not connecting with them on price or our services, or just maybe they don't like you for some reason, and it happens to all of us. More commonly, we know that our clients are inviting us back. So I'm looking at how many repeated engagements we have with our clients. Days sales outstanding. I have a note on this one. That is your accounts receivable divided by your total revenue times the number of days in the year. Effectively, how long have you been waiting to get paid? I think I kind of covered that in our other slide. What are your average real fees per hour? I know I covered this last year. I haven't thought about this too much. Okay, so separating this apart, what are you actually getting paid? Because this goes back to that question of, did you overwork your project? If you turn that calculation upside down, what are you actually getting paid? because if you budgeted 100 hours, you're charging them at 100 hours. Again, I'm doing this on a value-based billing idea. If you're charging them 100 hours, but you actually worked 200 hours and your billing rate was $100, your average real, quote unquote, real fees per hour were $50 because you charged them $100 an hour for 100 hours, but you actually worked 200 hours. You got paid half as much as what you charged them. That's a pretty good indicator you need to get more effective or charge more, or make sure you say, hey, you know what, this is out of scope. You have that out of scope conversation with your client. All right, so we're going to break, and we're going to, in a second, I want to hear what your key KPIs are, and that'll be in the live session. What goals do you set? I want to hear more about what I should have covered during this session, and how would you calculate any of these differently? So I want to make sure that's part of our conversation. But before we do that, I want to talk about some, I say silly KPIs, but I think these are actually pretty serious for some of you. So KPIs can also be less technical. I gave you the kind of technical ones that you should be thinking about with yourself or with a consulting firm, but these other ones are real. Does your partner and spouse still talk to you? If you're working so much that you don't have a personal relationship with your family, that's a problem. All right. How many days a week do you take a nap? And yet your business is still profitable. Hopefully, in an ideal world, you can take as many naps as you'd like to, and you have a very profitable business. This was one that I don't use anymore because my daughter's in high school, but when she was in fourth grade, I would go down and see her at the school just at the end of the block. How many days a week can I go see my daughter for lunch? And I tried to schedule I think it was Tuesdays, or Wednesdays, one of those two. I would go and have lunch with her every Wednesday and all of her friends, and it was great fun. How many days have you walked your dog during office hours? I think that was Jesse's. I think I got that one from her a couple of years ago. Um, how many vacations do you take per year? And wait till the 5.5. How many vacations do you take per year where you don't do any work? That's the real metric. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording here. So everybody out in YouTube land, we'll see you guys later. Everybody else who's here live, stick around. I want to hear from you and some of those questions.